Welcome to part 2 of inverse variations. So in today's lesson, we are going to learn how to write an equation given that we know data is inversely related. So if you look at example 3, the variables x and y vary inversely, and y equals 8 when x equals 4. Write an equation that relates x and y. So we're just going to do up until here. If we know that x and y vary inversely, then we know that we can write x times y equals k. That is always true for an inverse variation. Or we could use y equals k over x. I prefer to use this first equation. I think it's easier, it doesn't have fractions in it, and we know that fractions, we don't like them as much. All right, so now I need to find k. I need to find that constant of variation. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the x and the y. So I know the x is 4 and the y is 8. So in this case, I get k is equal to 32. Now, I'm going to plug that back in so I have an equation. So remember, an equation always is in an x and a y. So my equation is x times y equals 32, or y equals 32 over x. So that answers the first part of this question. Write an equation that relates x and y. Second half of this problem asked me to then find y when x equals negative 16. So in either equation here, I can plug in negative 16 and solve. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into this equation. So I get y equals 32 over negative 16. So y equals negative 2. So when x is negative 16, y is negative 2. Let's practice some more together. Making sure you can read that. I might make it a little bit bigger for you and turn it just a little bit. My dog is on the table if you hear some scratching around while I'm trying to do this. All right, it says the variables x and y vary inversely. Use the given values to write an equation relating x and y. Then find y when x equals 5. All right, so we have two things we need to do here. First, we need to write an equation. So again, we're going to start, and we're going to use, it says vary inversely. So we're going to use that x times y equals k formula. I'm going to plug in 2 and 2 because x is 2 and y is 2, so I get k is 4. K being 4, I'm going to go back, I'm going to plug that in there, so my equation is x times y equals 4, or y equals 4 over x. That is writing the equation. When it asks you to write an equation, your final answer should have a y and an x in it. I'm looking for the equation for the general case, not just for the two specific cases that they give us, okay? Now I have this, I'm going to find for the specific case, what is the answer when x equals 5? So if I plug in x equals 5, so when x equals 5, y equals 4/5. That is how we do both steps of that problem. All right, so let's go ahead here and let's look at number 15. If you can't read that, that says x equals 20 and y equals 7 over 20. I'll write it a little bigger. And we need to find the equation for the inverse variation. So again, if I use x times y equals k, I get 20 times 7 over 20 equals k, so k equals 7. So my equation becomes x times y equals 7, or y equals 7 over x. We're not going to do those two problems. Now to solve the second half of my equation, find y when x is 5. So when x equals 5, y equals 7/5. You can see here, as one is getting bigger, the other is getting smaller. A couple of real-life examples here. It says when the temperature is held constant, the volume of a gas is inversely related to the pressure P of the gas on its container. So when temperature T, and we're going to use a variable T for that, when temperature T is held constant, the volume V varies inversely with P. So we don't even need to know anything about the temperature. We need to know that the volume varies inversely with the pressure. Another way to write that is V times P equals K. They vary inversely. So a pressure of 32 pounds per square inch results in a volume of 20. So knowing this fact helps us to find out what that K is. So 32 pounds per square inch times 20 cubic feet. That's okay that we have different units here. Is going to equal 640. So our K in this case is 640. So K equals 640. So our equation is V times P equals 640, or P equals 640 over V. What is the pressure of if the volume is 10 cubic feet? So now I can go ahead and plug 10 in here and get 64, and our units here are pounds per square inch. Okay. And 18, the time in days T that it takes for a heart to harvest a field varies inversely with the number of farm workers, right? The more workers you have, the less time it takes. That's an inverse variation. Our farmer can harvest his crops in 20 days with 7 farm workers. How long will it take him to harvest the crop if he hires 10 farm workers? So first thing we need to do is find that inverse variation equation. So we know that the time T varies inversely with N, the number of workers. So T times N equals K. In one case, it took 20 days if he had 7 farm workers. So 20 times 7 equals K, K equals 140. So my equation is T times N equals 140, or T equals 140 over N. Now my second part of my question asks, how many days will it take if he hires 10 farm workers? So if I plug 10 in there, I have T equals 140 over 10, T equals 14. So it will take him 14 days to harvest the field with 10 farm workers. Thank you. Oh, I see that you can't see that bottom problem. So I am going to let's see, let me move that equation, that problem up so that you can see it here on the bottom. All right. So here is that problem that I was just showing you.